What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Vice President J.D. Vance out for a walk today while his 3-year-old toddler that is with him, accompanied with him, harassed by pro-Ukraine Slavia protesters. Slava Ukraine, I don't know how it's pronounced. I butchered it. I'm sorry, okay? Everybody's human. But J.D. Vance out today. Out for a walk. Now, keep in mind, I've always said that when it comes to the public, when it comes to this woke nonsense protester, you have the right to protest. You have the freedom of speech. But when it comes to when a politician is out with their family, when they are outside of the job, when they're out of the office, leave them alone. Don't surround their houses. Don't intimidate them with their family members. Don't drag them into your woke protests to try and use it as a weapon for your defense. Well, these pro SJW or social justice warrior protesters, as I call them, coming out in defense of Ukraine, had no qualms with intimidating a 3-year-old toddler. That J.D. Vance had to ultimately stop his walk and try to talk them down. Absolutely appalling. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you sit on. You should give people their space, especially, we've talked about this, privacy. Colin Rugg tweeting out here, new video released shows the moment J.D. Vance had to talk down a group of Ukraine fanatics as they harassed his child. 3-year-old child. Can you imagine that, going out with your 3-year-old and a bunch of wacko protesters surround your kid? Vance was heard calmly dealing with the old liberal females as they screeched about Ukraine. Today, while walking my 3-year-old daughter, a group of Slava Ukraini protesters followed us around and shouted. As my daughter grew increasingly anxious and scared, Vance said on X. Now, again, we're going to show that tweet after. The whole quote's there, but we'll go over the tweet because I want to show context first. It's a 2-minute clip of J.D. Vance trying to, again, appease these lunatics that can't give him his privacy, that ultimately this is a security risk for his family, a 3-year-old kid. And we've seen the way people behave, especially in like Canada, when we see people with the Palestine flags and burning Canadian flags, shouting death to the country. You want these people around your 3-year-old kid? This is crazy.
No one has articulated strategies.
Selling them out. Absolutely.
Respect, ma'am, I disagree. I think what we're doing is we're actually forcing a diplomatic settlement. If you talk to Joe Biden,
So while they're talking over him, and I just want to interject here because it's very hard to hear Vance in the background, but of course he was trying to be as polite as possible. Now you're selling them out. Of course, they're talking about the peace negotiations, if you want to put it that way, that Donald Trump is currently trying to run with Vladimir Putin as alongside Zelensky. Of course, we saw how J.D. Vance treated Zelensky at the White House. Again, I'd pay good money to watch that again in real time. But of course, J.D. Vance saying, I respectfully disagree. He's being prudent. He's allowing them to have their voice. So he's not treating them like a dictator. He's not saying you can't have the right to speak. And again, he's giving them a lot more than he should have. Ultimately, I'd be going indoors with my kid. I'd be calling the police. I'd be having these guys cleared out. You don't put a 3-year-old at risk like this with a bunch of wackos.
Do you think Russia can be diplomatic?
And this is about a separate country, and I don't think our investment in that country can go on indefinitely. I understand the disagree.
You're forcing to settle.
We're forcing both the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Russia won't settle.
So there it is. They said you're forcing them to settle. He says we're asking the Russians and the Ukrainians to settle, to talk peace. They want peace. They don't want any more forever wars. Now, one thing he says there is that he says that I just don't believe this is another country. I don't believe the United States is invested in funding a forever war. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, he's entitled to his opinion, and he's allowing these folks, don't forget, to have theirs. But they just want to talk over him. They don't want to listen to what he actually has to say.
Exactly. They certainly invaded Ukraine in 2022. But there needs to be a settlement. Ma'am,
They are the aggressor every time.
Ma'am, I understand that that's your view, and certainly they have, and certainly I have condemned, ma'am. Please, you're interrupting. I'm speaking with you, and I'm trying to be respectful. I have condemned the invasion. but I've also condemned the perpetual. That is the policy of the administration. And I've
So again, I know I keep interrupting, but I got to give props to JD Vance here because again, he's being very calm, considering the nature of what took place here. He says to them, I've condemned it. They did invade in 2022. We're talking about peace. We're trying to broker peace. We don't want to continue. Now, of course, the opinion of these folks that are surrounding him is that if you don't agree with them, you're wrong. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You either share their opinion or you're ultimately the villain. This is what I hate about these woke mobs, is that they can't take any criticism. They can't take any fact. They can't take any common sense. It's you either shut up and agree with us or you're Satan.
talk to you guys
You know
now
what happened? You
for
called
about 5
Trump
minutes.
America's Hitler.
And
What changed?
ma'am, now that's a different question. I'm happy. Would you like me to talk about how I've changed my view on Donald Trump from 10 years ago? Because I talked about it a lot during the campaign, and then the American people voted and made me the president of the United States.
In our
You've got no
leaders. That's
integrity.
what we want.
Called
Some
to me
integrity
to
in our
remind
You don't
leaders.
call
That's
not
all.
having any
That's what I
integrity.
expect
Well,
my
it must be
kids.
nice to go through life
To
and
look
see
up
that
to.
everybody who disagrees with you has no integrity. I have more respect for you. But ma'am, look at my 3-year-old daughter now, and I told you, I talked to you for 5 minutes, and now
Yeah, you
I
decided about
did not
why
agree
people are
to have my
yelling at you.
3-year-old to have people run around and yell at her. And I did talk to you, and I had said, if I talk to you for a few minutes, will you leave my 3-year-old daughter alone? And you said yes. So I'd like you guys to
I will
respect
let you
that.
walk.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
I
So right there, he says, I said that I would give you 5 minutes. And if I talk to you, you would leave me and my 3-year-old daughter alone. He's stressing again that you're putting my child at risk. You're intimidating my 3-year-old child over a war that isn't even taking place in the United States, over your own personal opinions about a war that's going on that we're funding, that you may agree or disagree with where the dollars are going and how peace is being brokered over continuing to shovel money into an ever-burning fire, so to speak, as if it were coal in a steam engine. They want this to end. Now, I said we'd get to it. Here's JD Vance's tweet. Today, while walking my 3-year-old daughter, a group of Slava Ukraini protesters followed us around and shouted as my daughter grew increasingly anxious and scared. I decided to speak with the protesters in hopes I could trade a few minutes of conversation for them leaving my toddler alone. Nearly all of them agreed. That's good to know, at least. It was a mostly respectful conversation, but if you're chasing a 3-year-old as part of a political protest, you're a shit person. I couldn't agree more. This is the problem that we're seeing, is that, again, if you don't share my values, you're wrong, you're incorrect. There's a time and a place. If people want to protest outside the White House, if they want to protest outside of Congress, if they want to protest on the side of a road, they have the right to do so. But when you see JD Vance in civilian attire and he's with his family, or Donald Trump or any of that, you don't have the right to approach them and harass them in front of their families. You don't have the right to approach and harass any politician in front of their families when they're on personal time. It's a security risk for these children. I understand that there's certain things that these guys know are going to come their way should they take this job. There's certain negatives to taking the job. People are going to have an opinion. The problem with having an opinion is they say that they're a lot like buttholes. Everybody's got one. You got to be respectful. Now, again, I will agree that those folks at the end of that video agreed that, hey, you gave us 5 minutes. We're going to go. We don't want to harass your daughter. So good on that one. But that could have turned very, very negative very quickly. We've all seen the summer of love in the United States. We've seen, again, protests that get completely out of hand in Canada. So again, props to JD Vance for taking the high road, for trying to sit and qualm the concerns of these protesters. But again, as he said, if you're harassing a 3-year-old, you're not really standing up for your cause. You're not really conveying a decent message. At least that's what I believe. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think JD Vance did the right thing, or do you think he should have had them fenced off by higher ends of security? Give me your thoughts below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show where I'm joined by my very beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, as we go over everything that happened this week in politics, everything that we know that's coming up in the week ahead, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. We look forward to hearing what you guys have to say inside of those streams, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.